first moved to New York, I was excited at the possibility of living in Manhattan. After living in the slow pace of Savannah, Georgia for 4 years, I was eager to see what the city had to offer. I dreamed of living in the perfect apartment in Midtown, climbing the corporate ladder at my first full-time job, and exploring the city at night with old and new friends. When I got here, I was immediately hit with the reality that I was not going to be able to afford to live in that high-rise apartment in Midtown, or even in the city for that matter. Coming from Savannah, Georgia, where you can rent a 2-bedroom, 2-story house for $700 per tenant, you can understand why I came in a little uninformed. Rent prices were not the only thing I came to understand when I started looking for apartments. I also started learning about all the fees that came along with securing an apartment, the compromises one would have to make on size and living conditions, and the odd mix of neighborhoods you have to choose from. If I were a good writer, this experience would have come out in a series of angry yet informative blog posts. But instead, I created an interactive guide for first-time renters in New York called Bitter Renter. This happens a lot. I go through a memorable experience, and depending on how greatly it's affected me, a creative project tends to come out of it. 99.9% of my projects come from experiences that I've had, things I've learned, and knowledge I want to share. With Bitter Rental, I felt cheated by the easy city life that New York sold to me. And so I wanted to create a tool intended to ease someone else into the reality of living in the Big Apple. What I'm most proud of with this project is that it wasn't just a visually appealing long-form blog post with jargon newbies would never understand. It explained everything you need to know, but in the context of your own situation. Both native New Yorkers and first-time visitors alike appreciated that, because despite their varying levels of knowledge, they all learned something new. Going from idea to execution is a hard and sometimes long process, depending on the complexity of the idea. It requires an enormous amount of diligence and resilience. So before I even start a project, I have to decide for myself, without any outside opinion, if I personally want to do a project and why. If I work on something that I'm not truly passionate about, it will not end well. I know this because it happened when I built Hashtags, a social media search engine for hashtags. The idea was the cornerstone for my senior graphic design project at the Savannah College of Art and Design. Looking back, my intentions were purely to learn more code. But at that time, I was too immersed in this new world that I discovered, the world of startups. Distracted by feature updates, design overhauls, investor meetings, networking events, and trade shows. I never took a moment to ask myself if I truly enjoyed what I was doing. What I learned was that it's really easy to keep going when things are going well. But when times get tough, that's when you're most honest with yourself. When you decide if you're ready to do what it takes. So after 2 years, when the work became tougher, I finally realized I didn't want to keep going. Hashtags took up most of my time, but I didn't feel fulfilled doing it anymore. And that sent me down a dark but necessary slope. It was then that I decided that I had to fully understand my intention for a project before deciding to go through with it. I had to decide how long I was willing to work on a project and why I wanted to work on it. And I have to decide all of this without any third-party perspectives provided to me by that of my friends, family, or coworkers. But once I know what I want to accomplish, it's pretty hard for anyone to convince me otherwise. Once the idea makes it through that internal monologue that I have with myself in the shower, the next thing I do is strategize. I try to plan the idea in its entirety, focusing on fleshing out the core concept and content. I do research on various aspects of the idea, the topic, and potential technology. And then I start talking to a few friends to get feedback. The planning process is always the most intense, because it's the most important part for me. But once I know my intention for an idea and the type of content that I want to have, everything after is just executing upon the strategy in place, the production half. This is when my left and my right brain go to war. The right side of my brain wants to explore everything, innovate upon what's been done before, and try new things no matter how crazy. It wants to forget what it knows about code and be free to create things that will surprise the user in delightful ways. This is the creative side, the place that makes the projects I complete my own. The left side of it all wants to keep me growing, remind me what's actually achievable in the current landscape of technology and what's going to be easier to accomplish in a given time frame. This is the technical side, the side where logic, reason, and feasibility join to shape my work. The problem is, it sometimes makes decisions based on my current capabilities and not what's presently available. And that can sometimes move me to oversimplify an idea without reason. I can't say that I figured out how to balance both sides, because one always seems to dominate the other. However, this typically happens at the right time. Throughout the design and user experience phase of Bit Rental, the right side did went up. The app was so complex that at that stage, it didn't really matter how I was going to build it. I first had to perfect the experience of it. It was an interesting challenge trying to balance both the informational and interactive aspects of the idea. I had to hone in on the user flow and interface to ensure that the user would be able to navigate through the process with ease. Here's a diagram that I prepared for Bit Rental, which outlines different paths a user could take based on their choices. This is an example of a user journey or flow. Without this, I'm pretty sure that the development phase would have been a nightmare. Once I was comfortable with flow, I thought long and hard about layout before moving on to typography and colors. All three things I think could make or break the user's experience. And while the app had many different screens, I decided to focus on 2 to 3, since the rest would have simply been iterations of them. Surprisingly, the left side remained dormant for most of this. That is until I got to the neighborhood screen. By this time, my left brain was running in circles, trying to figure out how it was going to be able to achieve this. Where it would find the data to support this feature, and how it was going to be able to code the interactive aspects of it were major roadblocks, because I had never dealt with custom maps before. Though I was researching this from the planning stage, it wasn't until I started designing that I felt the urgency to set the tech side of it. These are the moments when the left side decides to take over. It had to figure out where it was going to be able to pull data from, and how much control it had over image manipulation. Because of this, I didn't design something that wasn't actually achievable. And since I typically like to design an app from start to finish before I actually start coding it, I'm pretty grateful when the left side decides to make these decisions earlier on. While I was still able to satisfy my creative hunger for a simple, clean, yet beautiful interface, when it came time to code, the left side decided it had to take over the remainder of the project. It had to decide which programming language would best suit the project, whether or not I should include or exclude fancy page transitions, and how to best connect tables in a database to support the complex user flow. Bit Rental was the type of project where my left and my right brain, my technical and my creative skill sets, worked almost seamlessly together, honing in on their own parts to ensure the success of the project. In my personal projects, it has allowed me to pretty much create anything that I want. In the various jobs that I've had, it has allowed me to have a different perspective from that of just the designer or just the developer. Either way, the production phase always brings me a little joy. Seeing something that was merely started pencil on paper before come to life in front of me. It's why I taught myself how to code, and why I continue to push myself to be a better designer. When it comes time to launch any project, no matter how big, how small, or how confident I was in the idea, I'm always nervous. Presenting something you've worked hard on to the world is always terrifying, especially when it comes from an innate need to create something. Similar to an artist, similar to a painter and his paintings. I consider myself to be a weird blend of an artist and a designer. The artist side of me decides which ideas it wants to pursue, based solely from a subjective point of view, as a means of self-expression. The designer side of me decides how best to communicate that idea and the purpose. At my full-time job, we start with the user in mind. We help companies validate and create products that solve problems users genuinely have. In my personal projects, however, I'm selfish. I create because I want to, not because I have to. It can be a little unorthodox to others looking in, because I'm not interested in creating the coolest app, or building a startup that I'll work on for years and sell for millions later. I'm not interested in whether or not the world needs my idea, or if it's solving the world's biggest problems. I'm driven by my feelings and experiences. Whenever I have doubts about why I do what I do, I remember this quote by Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because that's what the world needs. People who have come alive.